Welcome back. Well, preliminary results from Nigeria's elections are expected later today, while the official results are expected from early next week. The winner will lead Africa's most populous nation and leading oil producer for the next 4 years. Vote counting began before many people had cast their ballots because of delays in the opening of the polling units and problems with staffing and technology. The voting was also marred by violence, with 16 people killed in incidents across the country. Shortly before polls opened, one soldier was killed and 20 others injured as Boko Haram fighters tried to infiltrate the northeastern city of Maiduguri, but were repelled. But the electoral violence, which has marred previous votes in Nigeria, was relatively low compared to other years. All right, let's now unpack all of these and other stories. Our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, now joins me live. Sophie, always a pleasure having you here. Firstly, let's get the latest from Nigeria. What are you hearing?
Well, I'm told that counting is continuing in different polling stations, and the Electoral Commission in that country is expected to brief the media later today, where they will share some light in terms of the progress made on counting. But we have reports that when you look at the results from party agents from different parties, you know the front runners are Atiku Abubakar and Muhammadu Buhari. Therefore, the two parties are constantly making announcement or posting the results as soon as they have results from the polling stations, information that they gather from their party agents in different polling stations. We are told that the APC that is led by Muhammadu Buhari has kind of make strong showing in north and western parts of Nigeria, while Atiku Abubakar, the PDP, is very strong in the east, and therefore it looks like very soon, maybe later tomorrow, we might have a clearer picture. Yeah.
Let's look at these two leading candidates, Buhari and Abubakar. How would you describe their respective campaigns leading up to this poll?
Well, when you look at Buhari was using whatever he has done as head of state in terms of delivery. But there was a problem. When he came to power, I remember I was there during the elections in 2015. He told Nigerians and the world at large that he was going to deal with the issue of Boko Haram. But unfortunately, he couldn't really wipe out the Boko Haram. You still have those challenges. You know, even days before elections, there were attacks, and yesterday as well. On the other hand, Atiku Abubakar, a businessman, has promised that he is going to ensure that there's prosperity in Nigeria, changing how the oil business is being conducted in that country. Therefore, as a businessman, a very wealthy person, he has promised to turn around the economy so that all Nigerians can benefit, while Muhammadu Buhari is saying that he has done a lot of developments in that country, because he indicated that Goodluck Jonathan, the PDP former leader, didn't do much, and therefore he was able to finalize some of the projects that PDP couldn't really do or deliver, and therefore he is using delivery. But people are very critical, questioning his age, and you know very well he spent most of his time in London due to medical challenges.
Well, both candidates, both Abubakar and Buhari, are in their 70s, isn't it?
Quite senior, I must say.
What's the appeal to the youth, for instance?
Well, the youth are very despondent and they are very disappointed. And because they have these senior people, they don't have young people, even though there are candidates who are young, but it looks like their campaigns didn't gain traction. Therefore, there is some disgruntlement in Nigeria, but this is a problem on the continent, where you find that during elections you have very few young candidates, and even though you have these young candidates, in terms of support base, they don't really make serious inroads. It's not unique to Nigeria. You have the same problem in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe. You saw the elections, and then in South Africa again, it looks like you do have young candidates that might be contesting as face of the campaigns for their parties, because the electoral system in South Africa is quite different. So we'll see. You look at Botswana, at least you have a much younger president in the SADC region.
Let's take a step back and look at the postponement of these elections. Were there any political pressure that played a part with regards to the postponement?
It's very difficult, but you know very well, in every country, election date is announced by the head of state. President Muhammadu Buhari can't tell us today that he wasn't aware and that INEC didn't give an indication that they were going to postpone elections. If that's the case, what kind of a president is Muhammadu Buhari, who doesn't know what's happening in his country? And therefore, both parties are actually blaming each other in terms of the postponement of the elections. But INEC is firm to say that it was based on logistic challenges, and therefore they had to do it. And now they are doing, they are conducting elections, and now it's counting, and they will really finish this whole electoral process.
There are a number of elections happening on the continent this year, isn't it? What's the count? About 15?
15 in the SADC region. You have Malawi, you have Botswana, you have our own country, South Africa, and you have many other countries. And today it's Senegal. Yes, President Macky Sall, who was able to turn the economy around in in Senegal. Looks like he is going to win the elections. You know very well that currently there are 5 other candidates, but they are not so strong. The 2 candidates, who is the former mayor of Dakar, former Caliph Sall, Mayor Sall, was disqualified because of corruption, and Karim Wade, the son of the former president of Senegal, Abdoulaye Wade, was also disqualified because of corruption, and therefore we expect President Macky Sall to take this one. This
West African nation is pretty stable, isn't it? It's one of the most stable democracies in sub-Saharan Africa.
You know what? Economy is a backbone of stability for any country. If people are seeing the results of the economic growth, there's progress, there's infrastructure, the country tends to be stable. It is for that reason you'll see that when he took office, that vigorous work of ensuring that he deals with the economy. You know, the economy grew with 6% last year. Therefore, you can see that he was working very hard to ensure that there's prosperity in that country. And that's how you get judged. If people are hungry, if people are unemployed, that's a recipe for violence, that's a recipe for unrest, that's a recipe for protest.
Look, there's reportedly about 6 million people that are registered to vote in these elections. What do you think is at stake here?
In Senegal, people would want to see a more robust, approach in terms of changing the lives of ordinary people. And now this augurs well for Macky Sall, who has already started to make changes in terms of growing the economy. But in Nigeria, of course, people are still complaining that poverty is rife and unemployment is very high.
Let's turn to Zimbabwe now. And Robert Mugabe celebrated a birthday recently. What were celebrations like there?
Well, during the week it was a small party, a small Anyana party, just the family, but and taking of pictures to show that he's still around.
How's he
but
looking?
He looks very, very frail. Tired, very frail. He's frailed. And yesterday, of course, it was a much bigger gathering, but with very few people invited, apparently 100 guests. And some of those who were there, there's a guy called Mawariri in Zimbabwe, posted in terms of what President Mugabe said at that function. We don't have audio, we don't have anything. But if this is true, it looks like he really lambasted the military in that country. Yes.
All right.
And then on the other hand, you had President Emerson Mnangagwa at the funeral of one of the ZANU-PF veterans, calling for peace, calling for dialogue, but also sending a strong warning against those who are perpetrating violence. But the question is, are you doing anything to combat that problem?
Just before we go, what's that relationship now between Mugabe and Mnangagwa? What are you hearing?
When I look at what he said yesterday, the old man is aggrieved. I think there's no way he's going to change his views around what transpired. He still feels strong that that was a coup and it was not justified. He's still very angry in terms of what the military did to him as a commander-in-chief. Even though the family is trying to manage this situation. I think it is for that reason very few people were allowed to attend this party, so that this thing doesn't get blown out of proportion, because they knew if journalists were there, it was going to be a big story. But already it has been leaked that he lambasted the military. And we know that when Grace Mugabe lost her mother, it is the government that assisted her to come back from Singapore and also assisted with the funeral. So from Grace Mugabe's side, she's doing everything in her power to manage this fallout. But President Mugabe has got nothing to lose. He's senior in his twilight days. He's just, speaking from the heart. And clearly, he is not going to forgive the military and President Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting developments. There's also developments on the economic side with regards to the currency, and there seems to be this new currency.
Yes, there's this new currency. The Minister of Finance and the Reserve Bank Governor are trying very hard to indicate that all these actions are meant to address the economic challenges in that country. We know that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be in Zimbabwe on the 12th of March. We'll get a sense in terms of what's happening on the ground, because during that binational commission, I think the main issue on the agenda will be the economic challenges in that country, but the dialogue, how do we ensure that this dialogue does happen, because the opposition is quite clear. Nelson Chamisa is saying he wants a neutral mediator in terms of bringing all parties together. They feel that President Emmerson Mnangagwa is conflicted because he still feels that he's the president. On the other hand, they don't believe that he's the right man. They didn't accept the results.
Yeah. Sophie, always great insight. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And it was Sophie Mokoena, SABC Foreign Editor.